You see, at the time of independence, there were only 4 classical styles recognized. and that's simply because of geographic and political reasons. Because Tagore, when he created Shantiniketan, and he wanted to have dance dramas that would make use of his poetry and give a creative opportunity and performing opportunity, he brought one great Manipuri guru, he brought Kathakali guru. So there's what's called Tagore-style Manipuri. Because of Tagore's interest, Manipur was known, and that's one of the classical styles. Kathakali, out of so many great traditions in Kerala, was known because of Valatol. Bharatanatyam was a creation of Rukmini Devi, Krishna Iyer, people who had chastened it and done it. That was known. And Kathak, of course, was known, even though it was basically mudra and a court tradition, but had been recognized and been studied by enough members of who were promoting nationalism and national identity. So because of those individuals, it was known. So Manipur was known because of Tagore and because of the guru there. Now the guru who went to Shantiniketan happened to teach some Bengali girls off-season also in Calcutta. One of those dancers became my teacher in America. Her name was Minati Basu Roy, and she had performed when she was young, and then she happened to be in America. I happened to take Manipuri because I was interested to have regular classes in any classical style, and it suited me because I liked lyrical movement, and I came to India to continue. When I went to Manipur the first time, there was not a single person who had ever heard English from an English speaker. If they knew English, they had learned it from another non-English speaking person. It was extremely difficult to communicate. And yet the communication was wonderful. Today, when you tell me that you went there and you see a lot of social unrest and military, this was unknown then. It was restricted. It was a sensitive area because it was on the border with Burma, and there was a certain amount of smuggling, and also there had been a war with China in '62. So it was a restricted area, but it was a very peaceful area. In Manipur was the first time in India that I rode a bicycle, because all of the women rode bicycles, and the women were very strong because, as you know, there was the women's market. The women controlled economy because they did the trade, and they also then had a lot of forms for speaking because they were meeting, interacting. Every home had a loom on the porch, and everybody wove their own clothes. And I think it's generally you find that indigenous people who are following their tradition, everything is aesthetically perfect. Once you bring in synthetic and things from outside, you get cacophonies and things that don't work. But the color choices, the patterns, everything, when it's indigenous, it's always just absolutely aesthetic by any standards anywhere. Of course, as I mentioned, there was no map. I went to the PR or the tourism or whatever there was municipality, and one gentleman said, come back tomorrow, I'll make you a map. And he made me a beautiful watercolor map, which was extremely useful. Where's the tank and where's everything, the temples.
Oh, that's
There was only one place to stay, which was a government guest house. And my Hindi was minimal. So it was a challenge, but we managed. When I danced at the academy, I studied three things. I studied Kartal Cholam, which is the large cymbals, and I studied with Tangdam Chauba Singh, who was a great, great, great master. And fortunately, I had studied this earlier, Actually, I may be mixing up my two trips, 74 and 76. In 76, I studied the kartal, and I had already been studying kartal with Singhajit Singh. So then when I went to learn from him, he had me give a performance at the academy. I gave a talk about lava notation, about how to notate dance. And then I did the demonstration of Kartal Cholam. And the impact was that even though Kartal Cholam was understood to be for men, they felt that maybe this is something they could consider introducing into the curriculum for women. And now there are some very successful Kartal Cholam groups who are performing. The first year, I also studied at the academy a little bit of Ras technique. I think I learned one item, maybe something like Krishna Tandav or another parang. And then I also focused mostly, because that was the time of year, on the Laiharoba. So Ranjani Maibai, this just amazingly wonderful woman, she taught me with Kumar Maibi as her assistant, who later retired. They taught me the basic Maibi dance that you see whenever you see a performance of items, which is invoking from earth. You start with the hands over the womb and you have all of these movements. But I also learned several other of the dances. I took extensive notes, and a very young scholar who you might have met, Achobi Sana. Did you meet him? Achobi Sana was a young scholar, one of these people who have such a passion, like you, but a burning passion to learn and to know and to document and to share. And he gave so much time with me. We would leave at 7 a.m. to go where there was a Maibi performance for classes, or class and then performance. Every day, morning and evening, was Maibi class, Maibi performance for the whole season. So I was able to visit different venues, small ones, because each Umanglai, the pairs of gods and goddesses, they owned a field, and the income from the crop of that field supported the festival. And so the festival was always an odd number of days. So it might be 5 or 7 or 11, 13, depending on how financially well off the fields of the deep.
Nearby Imphal, nearby or some in
All
inside.
around.
All around.
Imphal and around and about. We went all over. And we'd go on bicycle. One wonderful experience I had was going to the jewelry maker to make my jewelry for Manipuri. First of all, I was going, and it was very muddy, the rainy season, and I think I was probably wearing a sari. I'm not positive, but probably. Anyway, my bicycle slipped and I wound up covered in mud. So I pushed my bicycle, my muddy bicycle and muddy me, along a little farther to the home of the jewelry maker. And there they helped me get bathed. They took my clothes. They dressed me in the daughter's beautiful fennec and chadar. And then I sat while my clothes were drying and selected my jewelry patterns. So I was able to see all of the molds for making the jewelry and the process and choosing which size, which everything, how many of what. So my complete set of jewelry, I planned it, I ordered it, and I watched as they were making. That was a very magical time, sharing with them.
While dancing La Haroba, what was the most important for you from the dancing point of view exactly? So how did you feel? How did you could it connected with those things that you already knew from India?
Well,
so
you see, the movements in the La Haroba are the core movements that were further developed and made sophisticated in the Ras. And so you have, first of all, you've got these movements that, in the same way, everything is figure eights, everything is, what would I say, transition. So that in other Indian dance style, you've got poses, clarity, sculpture. So everything is curves and circles and figure eights. So that a thing like this in the La Haroba, you have all of these, which are there in La Haroba. If you were in Tangta, if you're holding a sword and a spear, it's the same exact movement, And then, of course, you have this also in the Ras. And so in Ras, you have a slightly more sophisticated basic movement, but there you actually have this. So this is your basic movement in the La Haroba, and the basic movement in Ras would be this one, And of course, since the Ras was seen in a vision by King Bhagyachandra, so then he had dance gurus, then be supported to develop the art. So the lyricism, the elastic movement, the syncopation that's there, where the beat may be not just with a step, but with the bend, which you don't have in the, other styles that are like that. And basically, you have the kind of movement that's there in Burmese dance, in Cambodian, in Thai, but it gets more sophisticated. I would say that perhaps, Manipuri Ras is much more sophisticated. Maybe the La Haroba movements are more comparable to the movements you have, say, in Thai. Obviously in Thai you've got, your exaggerated hands. But in terms of the vocabulary and the range, I would say there's a certain, not entirely, but there's a certain similarity.
Correspondence.
Of course, there's a correspondence. Now, in the La Haroba, you've got a fair variety. You see, there's two La Harobas. There's the La Haroba that's done by non-Maibis. And that is a very sophisticated traditional folk dance. So whenever in India or abroad there are folk dance competitions, when La Haroba goes, it generally gets the prize. Because it's more sophisticated than most folk dances. But it's a folk dance. It actually is a little bit similar to Bali. It's a place where everyone dances. And so when you watch a La Haroba performance, it's not a performance. When you go to a La Haroba field, so this is what I saw, that when the people are dancing, you'll have a line of women, and you'll have the old grandmas, and they'll be going and doing like this, And then at the end of the line, you'll have the 4 or 5-year-olds, and they'll be doing like this. And they'll be also doing, and they're all dressed up. And so you've got everybody, through it. So everybody dances.
They are aware of the meaning. They apply already some kind
Yes.
of meaning to all these gestures. So
Well,
that is-
it's the gestures are not meaning like with mudras. It's not like Vinayog. It's not like Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, Odissi. The meaning is more abstract and more it's metaphysical. And one thing that's very interesting is that in Manipur, everybody, unless they're like a communist, okay, but a regular person would be, equally committed to the Laiharoba pre-Hindu tradition as they are devout Hindus. They operate with seamlessly in the way that like the Newar kings of Nepal practiced both Buddhism and Hinduism. They had their own synthesis. So in Manipur, one of the things that's very interesting is that the dance that you see outside of Manipur is very nice, and you do see things, and it's good, but it's actually not important for Manipuris, because Manipur, unlike other parts of India, mostly, it's still a living tradition. And that means that if you play Kartal Cholam or Pung Cholam, you're working virtually every day of the year because your dance is required for weddings, for funerals, for teeth ceremonies, for all of the rites of passage times, and not to mention religious festivals. So you're busy performing actually for the things that the dance was created for. You don't need to just take it like a museum piece and develop it and go out and do it on a stage somewhere. Mm-hmm. You see, of course, in India, the British passed the anti-Nach law, and they did their best to completely end the dance traditions connected to temples, which is a whole long story about how. But that means that traditions like Bharatanatyam, Odissi, Kuchipudi, whatever, we try to recreate the space of being sacred and being in a temple. And sometimes there are festivals in front of temples, and sometimes you even do it in the temple. But it's not the same as doing it as part of the rituals that are still in place. That's been reconstructed for Vilasini, by Swapna Sundari, where they actually go for several days and do all of the different times of the day. Now, in Manipur, the dance is still performed as a part of people's lives, as part of temple practice, and also for all events. I had the opportunity to perform in a temple the first year that I went. I had only learned, like Chali, the basic steps, and Bangi Parenga Choba, which is your basic ritualistic dance, which is done in temples. So, I was in a temple, and I was dancing it.
Where? In which temple?
I'm not sure. It wasn't the Sri Sri Govindavi temple, but it was another one. Someone told me what it was. I've written it down somewhere. Very nice temple. But either before or after the dance, it was necessary to go and bow before the deity. And I learned two things. One thing is that in Manipur, you do not go in front of the statue and bow, because that would be blocking the view of the god. So you come to the side and then you bow sideways. So one thing is I learned how to do that. The second thing was when I bowed down, I thought, I am forbidden from bowing before any graven image. Therefore, I may be struck by lightning. So as I bent down, doing something that my faith forbids me to do, I thought, okay, this may be it. And as you see, I survived. I got up, and then I realized that whatever cosmic forces are there, that everything is universal, everything is metaphysical, everything is representational, and that was understood. Okay, so dancing the town. You see, when you dance Manipuri, whether it's Laiharoba or whether it's Ras, both of them have an internal vision. These are dances that are a meditation. And when you're dancing, your world extends to your hands. And you are looking at your fingertips, and you're creating this space that's right around your body. And so you, sitting there behind the camera, are beyond my vision, and I don't even know who's there. I know somebody's there, but I can't really tell. And it's not extroverted like these other things. You're reaching out, you're looking at the God. It's not that. It's meditative, and you're here. And if you don't look at your hands, actually, if you look out, you can get very dizzy. Because with the turning, whether it's Laiharoba or whether it's Ras, whenever I haven't practiced in a long time, and then I do, and I'm not centered properly, then I'll get a little bit dizzy when I practice because of all the turns. But then when I'm doing it correctly with the internal vision hand, then it's absolutely fine. You can do any amount of turning and turning and turning.
So that means there is no Abhinaya in Manipuri, because Abhinaya is something that carried in front.
That's not so.
The whole conception of Abhinaya is something that is extra.
No, I don't agree.
No?
No.
How?
Well, because the Abhinaya is definitely there, but the Abhinaya in Manipuri is Abhinaya that is expressed through the whole body. Whereas in some dance forms, the Abhinaya is from the waist up. So you have feet doing all kinds of stuff, and then on top of it, you've got hands, and you've got face, head, Okay, but in Manipuri, like in Western ballet or modern dance, sometimes, the entire body is creating the expression.
Message.
The message.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the message primarily is bhakti. It is so deeply dripping with devotion, bhakti, because the form of Vaishnavism or worship of Krishna that came with the Bengal missionaries, very much like ISKCON. It's that same branch of worship of Vishnu. So that form, in fact, when I went to America, I taught Manipuri to ISKCON, Hare Krishna, and they would come and pay me in quarters, because in those days they were still collecting money on the street, and then they would pay for classes with quarters. And Manipuri was the only form of dance that their guru, that Bengali, railway guy who then spread it around, the only dance he didn't object to, because it's not sensual. It's all bhakti, and the body's covered. But it's very expressive. It's very emotional. However, you do not, if I'm doing Git Govinda in Manipuri, we don't do sancharis. You don't take a line and develop and develop and develop it, because you don't have such specific vinayog of hand gestures. You are very much expressive and there's a lot of abhinaya, but you see, the abhinaya doesn't have to be extroverted. So for instance, if I'm saying that, Krishna is there, and I'm looking at the beautiful springtime and I'm dancing, so all of that is communicating and the words are there. But I don't have to be saying to you, look, Yamuna, here's the Yamuna. But I don't have to be, as I would, as an Odissi dancer, I would be going, do you see on the banks of the Yamuna River here, right? Do you see? You know, I can do all of that. But you don't do that in Manipuri. But you see, if in Manipur, for instance, the flute is held like this, as opposed to a stylized thing. It's just like that. There's the flute. And if I wanted to say that in the dark sky, that, like a necklace, that like, the words might be that the cranes, the white cranes across the sky, are like a necklace. Now, remember that this is being danced in a society where everyone is, number one, understanding the words. So how literally you need to act out the words, it doesn't there. I don't have to act it out, If I say this, you know where I'm pointing, who I'm pointing at. It's Radha or Krishna. So it's very communicative. And because people understand the words, that whatever is done, it's going to touch people very, very deeply. People will go up to the dancer, touch their feet. The dancer, the Radha or Krishna, is Radha and Krishna while they're in that costume and while they're doing that dance. It's very, you are it. And so whatever you do, if it's Krishna playing and jumping around and everything, but if I'm doing Krishna and jumping, even if I'm jumping, but I don't have to look at the audience. I stay within my space as I'm doing all of these things. And so it's very communicative. It's very, very subtle and sophisticated. It's very much unpeeling the onion because it's very specific. It's actually easier to learn to do this, than it is to do this exactly in the right place. Not too big, not too small. How much you go, space hold, that is the wrist action and not the fingers, no finger flapping. It's very subtle, very elegant, very sophisticated. And because the audience knows it and is connected, it's profoundly moving, and the abhinaya is fantastic. But it's not facial abhinaya. It's abhinaya using anga, whole body.
What was the most difficult for you physically in this technique, in grasping of the technique, understanding? So what was the most, maybe strangely enough, but still? Some things already was with you, so some things already maybe was ready to. But what appeared?
One thing was that the Manipuri that I had learned before I came to India was from the same guru who had taught at Shantiniketan, but it was a little bit more Tagore style, which means it was broader. So my guru, Singhajit Singh, he'd said that it was the best Tagore style that he'd seen, but the difference would be that I had learned to go like this.
Means more joyful, more
free, more movement, more bending. Whereas what I learned then with my guru was very, very restrained. And then when I showed it to my first Manipuri guru, she said, "Oh, but you're just doing this. You don't have that wonderful flow and movement because it's very restrained." But when I danced in Manipur a few years ago for their annual festival, I was invited. I came to do Odissi. When I was there, they said, "We would like you to do Chow." I said, "I can't switch like that." They said, "Please do Manipuri." I thought, wow, I haven't done Manipuri in a long time because I haven't had the musicians to be able to grow, so I've focused more on the others. But I said, this is a wonderful opportunity because the Academy musicians are there. So I've got good musicians. And so I said, okay, we'll work on Git Govind. And so with the lines and with what I remembered, and I do Git Govinda in Odissi, and I think I had done it earlier in Manipuri, so I could put together and create a piece. And I did it, and it was very much appreciated. And afterwards, one of the very senior, knowledgeable Rasikas, critics there, he said that of all of the outsiders, meaning non-Manipuri, not Indian, of all the non-Manipuris, he said, that my dance is the best. And that meant including Indians from Delhi, from Calcutta, from Mumbai. So I was really like, I couldn't ask for more. He said that my Manipuri was the best for any outsider. And this is after I hadn't been doing it in a long time. I mean, more than a decade. I mean, once in a while, a lecture demonstration, one piece. But earlier, of course, it was my main style. It's what I came to do. It's what I loved. And I had studied and performed in one program, Ras, both Radha and Krishna, separate costume, Maibi, and Lyharoba, and Kartal Cholam, and also modern choreography, a dance about space that my guru choreographed for me. I did not perform Tangta. I learned some, but definitely not at a level that I could have done a performance of that.
Manipuri in Manipur and outside of Manipur, how can you compare it?
Well,
Does it make a sense?
yes,
Or
yes.
people are
Well, no, I'll
different?
tell you, there's a very interesting thing. When Manipur was taken outside of Manipur into an entirely other ethos, another world, it changed. It changed a lot. So, as I said, when Manipur was done for Bengalis, Tagore wasn't interested in his university students becoming competent Kathakali or Manipuri dancers and spending their life doing that. He wanted them to draw on the richness of these techniques and to be able to use it to make interesting dance dramas. It's sort of like learning ballet and doing musical comedy. You don't have to be perfect, but you need some. Now, a very interesting thing happened in Mumbai, or Bombay at that time. The Javeri sisters, absolutely devoted to the art and the guru, and wanting this art that they loved to be understood and appreciated by the people in their society, which was both Maharashtrians and also to extend a broader national and international audience. In order to make the Manipuri that they learned accessible, they made some choices that are very significant. One choice was they wore ankle bells, which nobody in Manipur does or ever would do. Okay, why? For one thing, ankle bells, in effect, your feet are part of the orchestra, and you are doing your different rhythms on the beat. In Manipur, the dance is done off beat. So one could be with a bend, one and or you jump in the air. Instead of jumping 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you jump 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So by having the ankle bells, they made it more accessible for people who were used to saying without the bell, nothing's happening, it's boring, there's no rhythm. So they added bells so people could get that they expected, But they also lost something that's intrinsic. I mean, from a Manipuri perspective, they lost something that's intrinsic. Like, what are you doing? Okay. The other thing they did that was interesting is they translated the movements into mudra. So in Manipur, as I was showing, this is your basic chali step, your basic walking step. So what they did is they'd explain. This is Alapadma, this is Pataka, this is Hamsasya. So you've got Alapadma, Pataka, Hamsasya. Now that makes sense for an audience that's used to mudras, but it makes no sense to the aesthetics of Manipuri, because Manipuri has no stops. It's never here, and it's never here, and it's never here. It's all transition. It's the transitions between these movements. And so, it's very understandable what they did, but from a Manipuri point of view, in Manipur, it's a distortion of the basic aesthetics or rules. I mean, and I'm not even making a value judgment. I think something can be said for them doing it and why they did it, and it doesn't matter to Manipur. That's what they're doing, and they did it with the sincerest heart. But and they're extremely nice people. And then my guru, who was from Raj Kumar from the royal family, he represented a pure Manipuri approach and not appreciating it. I think they've made great contributions, terrific contributions to the knowledge and creativity and development of Manipuri, but it's separate from what is done in Manipur. And the Manipuris don't care, they're quite happy, they're doing their art where they are. Now, one controversy in Manipur, which was not really an issue when I first went, but later became a big problem. When Bengali Hindus brought the worship of Krishna to Manipur, they insisted that all of the songs had to be sung in Bengali, which they were sung when I learned the dance. However, later, Manipuris who want independence, and there's been issues and stuff, have had serious issues with the academy, saying that we should sing it in Meitei, in the Meitei language, and not in Bengali. And so I think that most of the Bengali traditional songs have been translated into Meitei, which is, in my opinion, not a bad idea at all. There's no reason. Also, pronunciation is more accurate and understanding is better.
But still there are so many Bengali songs they danced on.
Well, you see, the tradition is, it's sort of like what? If you were doing something in Greek or Latin, and this is what the tradition was, and you like the tradition and you like doing it that way, and then people say, the Romans conquered us, why are we doing it in their language? Okay, we're fine, we like it, but let's do it in our own. This is a very interesting subject, and I can see both perspectives, and I think it depends on exactly when and what and where, what is appropriate or should be done. And I wouldn't say that it's wrong to change it in this sense, because it's theirs. I also wouldn't say that it's wrong to do it in the way it was originally done. Depends what.
Manipuri maybe nowadays a less popular Indian dance. It's
always been less popular.
Do you see the future of Manipuri dance?
Yeah, sure.
How?
Will continue because it's a living tradition in Manipur. Now, Manipur's got a lot of problems, but it's actually a living tradition. And in that sense, it's more vital than other places. So, for instance, Chow, although Chow is not recognized as classical, but it is traditional. And if you don't use English words, if you use Margi and Deshi, then it's Margi, I would say. But my guru in Chow, Krishna Chandra Nayak, when India became independent and when the rulers who supported these arts lost their privy purse, so they first of all couldn't take taxes, and then the compensation was eliminated, he forbade the dancers to continue dancing because he did not want it to go down. And when the Maharaja was in charge, he was giving the support to the artist. There were gurus who controlled what they did, how they did it, and everything. But clearly, without that control, things are going to slide. So he forbade them to dance, and for a long time, the Chow dancers were known as rickshaw pullers because they were strong and healthy, but untrained for anything except their dance. So that's what they could do, is pull rickshaws. My guru was a rebel, and he had left and gone to Calcutta, and he was teaching girls there. And then he joined the little ballet troupe in Gwalior, and then he came to Delhi, and he got his award, and he was teaching, and was a great, great, great guru. But that tradition, it's very hard with a lot of support to bring back and strengthen a form that was basically cut off when the patron, the one patron, said, "I forbid you to do it." Manipuri lives in Manipur. It's part of their life. I would say that it's far more threatened by the political and military strain there, which is forcing young people to leave Manipur and study and work outside and not think about things like tradition and art. But as far as what it means for the people, that's still there in Manipur. If Manipur survives, its art will survive. But outside of Manipur, it has never been popular. And what they say about being more popular, popular in the sense that Javaris were dancing and it was popular. Singhajit Singh, my guru here in Delhi, he's like the father of modern ballet, which they also do in Manipur now. But he would take the traditional technique, and then he would take stories, Manipuri stories, whatever, and he would make beautiful dance dramas with groups and duets. And he did that, and he was sponsored, and that was well received. But he was the only one in Delhi. There were a few gurus around. Nobody ever wanted to learn it. When I came to India to learn Manipuri, I was the only student. There were no other students. He had a company, which was basically people from Manipur and a couple of dancers. So like when he came to Manipur as a young man, he started teaching one young woman, a young girl from the neighborhood who was from a very sophisticated artistic family. That became his lead dancer and eventually his wife. And there were literally one or two other Indians who learned and later were involved in the company. And other than that, there was like Manipuri teachers that nobody knows that are like some school or something. It was never popular.
What about the theatre? Do you remember the Manipuri theatre when you came first? So what was your impressions? Did you meet Ratantiyam?
When I was studying Manipuri, Ratantiyam was at National School of Drama.
Later he came and organized the theatre.
Well, I mean,
theatre.
He graduated. See, all of the students that had the good fortune to be there when Al-Qazi was the director, they had an incredible education because Al-Qazi, he was criticized for this, but he, who had studied at Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, he gave them a foundation in Western and Indian traditions. So every year he would bring a group. It might be a no company, it might be a Yakshagana company, and that company would work with the students and train them, besides doing their own performance. And they would get a solid understanding of the theatrical techniques and aesthetics of a very different form, each of their 3 years. Plus they would be working in regional theater. Plus they would be doing great Western things, Shakespeare, realistic. So they would be getting magical realism, they'd be getting tradition, they'd be getting the best of the West. And then when they graduated, not only Rattanatiyam, but others, they went home and they created, barehanded, from virgin territory, they created a tradition. Now the advantage for Rattanatiyam is that he happened to come from a state that had such a rich tradition of arts. As I said, everybody in Manipur is a dancer. Everybody. Every boy, every girl has danced. And so when he created a theater company with his vision of what he wanted to do, he didn't have to train actors who don't know where their body is to try to do physical theater. Imagine, I have a friend who studied with Grotowski, and then he comes back to America, he's working with Richard Schechner. They're doing physical theater. Actors would come from there to learn Chow, but they don't know, actors don't have much physical training. So if you're not studying with a Grotowski, how much physical training do you really have? You're not a dancer. When Rattanatiyam went to Manipur, and he had his creative vision for what he wanted to do, he had bodies that could do whatever he wanted and more. Because you get all of the boys are trained in Cholam. So his actors are Cholam dancers. They can move, they're strong, they know martial arts, okay? All the physicality that you could want in a creative theater form, he had that. And then he took these already physically sophisticated and trained people, and then he created he could take wonderful themes. He took themes from the West. He took themes from India, Chakravayu, Antigone, Manipur, and whatever, the Ibsen play that he did, for the Ibsen Festival Centennial, whatever theme he took, and with his vision as a director, he would work with his people. And he's one of these people who works long and slow, long and solid. So they work, and they work, and they develop material, and they create. But he's got such a fertile soil that with his brilliance, he does performances that are that are affecting audiences anywhere in the world where you see them. Now, another graduate from NSD from the same time, with the same kind of training that Rutten had, they go back to what? Certain states, and they create a folk theater. And so you're going to have a wonderful folk theater. You're going to have rustic humor. You're going to have jokers. You're going to have things that come from the local tradition. But you're not going to be able to go that far from the, from the ethos of that kind of folk humor and stuff, So it'll be good, and it'll reach, and it can go abroad. But anyway, Rutten, that's just one of those just great combinations of his wonderful training, his wonderful creativity and drive and brain, and coming from and returning, which he didn't need to do, and he did, and it's been hard, to a society that has such a deeply rich artistic tradition and arts, where everybody that would come to the company would already have tremendous physical knowledge and skills. Mm-hmm. And then others inspired by him have come up. And so you've got a very dynamic theater, modern theater, and it's very good. And you've got a very dynamic modern Manipuri dance. My goodness, the ballets that are made using Manipuri. And because Manipuri, like Western dance, uses the whole body. And it's a group form. It's not a solo with hand gestures. That depends on the face. It uses the whole body, and it's a group form. So when you're creating dramatic productions using dance or using theater or both, you've got great stuff. And in fact, at National School of Drama Festival, whenever there's a production from Manipur, there's quite a range. Whether you would say it's a play or whether you would say it's a dance drama.
It's always dance drama.
Well, no, it might be a play, but you've still got great physicality. It's a drama, why? Because people are speaking, right? But you could also have something with minimal speech, because people won't understand or whatever, and a lot of movement. And it's theater or it's dance. What is Kathakali? Is it a drama or is it a dance? It's whatever you want it to be. Take your pick for your genre. You put it into theater category, great. You put it in dance category, great. But there's great. And what's also incredible is that Manipur today, as I said, and as you know, it is such a torn and dangerous and difficult place to be. It's like whether or not any young person is at risk every time they go on the street of either getting stopped by the police because they think they're a rebel, or get stopped by rebels and militants saying you're with the police or you're with another group. The life is dangerous. There's a huge drug problem, huge HIV problem from drug usage. With all of the horrible problems that make it so difficult to live, you still have this incredible creativity of people doing classical dance, classical theater, and dance means several forms. There's 5 forms of dance in Manipur. And this is being maintained, plus all of the creative theater and dance. So that's pretty amazing.
Are you doing something in Manipuri dance form in your own production? Do you also create, or nowadays mostly you are based on Odissi?
You see,
what is your vision of your own production?
Yeah, you see, when I dance, depending, I believe firmly that the only thing that is critical is content. So when people say, oh, are you doing fusion? Are you mixing this and that? I personally feel For one thing, I'm a purist. When it comes to Indian classical dance, I'm a purist because I believe that it's like any language. You can mix languages. If you're talking to someone who knows Russian and English and maybe Hindi, you can mix them. And it's rich. You choose the words that you want. But this is by choice. You also can be fully articulate in one language. What happens with a lot of fusion is when people actually don't speak much of one language and they mush it together with another, and you don't have language closure. So I believe that you should choose what you need. And in this sense, I have 17 years of modern dance experience. If something is appropriate to be done in modern dance, then as a modern dancer, I have full right to draw on whatever is in my body. Manipuri, Odissi, Chow, Martha Graham, Cunningham, Nikolai, Hanya Holm, Doris Humphrey, okay, Russian ballet, Cicchetti ballet. I mean, walking on your hands. As a modern dancer, whatever is a part of you is your vocabulary and you have full right to use. So if I'm doing something modern dance, then what comes out will come out. And there will be a lot of lyrical movement, and I'm not intending to do anything, but what comes will come, and it'll draw on all of this. But if I'm doing something, and it depends on what it's about. Somebody like once, Sarojini Naidu poem, and I thought, Manipuri, Chow, no. It needs to be, I need to have the full freedom, the lyricism of modern dance and the leg movements. Manipuri informs my being, but if I'm doing something in Manipuri, it's in Manipuri. I would not say I'm combining Manipuri with X or Y. In fact, even as an Odissi and Chow dancer since 1975, Manipuri since 69, it would be very funny because there's a couple of dancers who have done Chow and Odissi fusions. And there's even been some festivals where I've been asked to dance and it's do a fusion. And I say, I don't have a fusion. I have Odissi and I have Chow. Now in Chow, I have created a solo for a woman, because since it's a man's dance, you don't have that nari, which draws on all of the basic techniques. And so it might have a mudra or two that you don't normally see, but not really. And also in my Mahadevi Upasana, which means an hour-long piece about Devi, when I'm doing one Puranic legend, which is Devi, the goddess, as witness to Pralaya, the dissolving of the universe. So as she's watching, I do use Chow, bowls, and parans, and the movement of Shiva dissolving the universe is Chow. But I really don't call that a fusion. I mean, it's an Odissi production, and Shiva is doing some Chow. I did a production on Chamana Antagunta. This is a novel written in 1902. It's a subaltern novel by a man, Fakir Mohan Senapati, who is responsible for saving Odia language and not having it eliminated in favor of Bengali. And also, before Mukranjanand or anybody, he wrote this real social critique novel. So when I was asked to do it in Odissi, it was a great challenge because the aesthetic of Odissi is beautiful and balanced, and this had to have irony and things that aren't really part of it. So I did this by using text and interpreting it in Odissi and dancing, but there were portions of the dance when the landlord's mistress is intimidating the innocent girl, and that I use chow. I use chow for that.